Hello and welcome to the Longwood Women's Basketball Coaches Corner with Head Coach Bill Reinson. I'm your host, Scott Bacon, and we appreciate you joining us again for another installment. And Coach, as always, it's a pleasure to have you.
It is a pleasure to be here.
Well, let's start off by talking about the games last week. High Point and Liberty, the top two preseason ranked teams in the conference, coming to Willett Hall. And on Thursday night, it was the High Point Panthers who came in 79-72 win as they came in and got the road victory.
Yeah, it was, I thought it might have been our best effort of the season, though, really. Thursday night, we really put a lot of effort and emotion into the game, followed the game plan very well. Unfortunately, we just got beaten by a player who had a monster game, and we just couldn't overcome it.
Yeah, how about Cheyenne Parker? 34 points, 20 rebounds, and arguably, if not pretty definitively, the best player in the Big South Conference.
At this point, I would believe from what we've seen that she's the best player in the Big South Conference. But she's so long, athletic, she can handle the basketball. And what happened Thursday night was not only was she doing all of that, but every shot that she took seemed to go in. So it was a good night for her.
You touched on the effort of the team in that game. Go a little bit further with that, because one of the things you mentioned to me after the contest was one of those quintessential hustle plays that your team had and seemed to have quite a number of on Thursday night.
Yeah, I think we've kind of embraced playing small. And what happens when we play small is we've got to get every loose ball on the floor, every rebound that hits the floor, we have to have it, because we know that the ones up in the air we're not going to get as many of. But there were a few instances, especially late in the second half. We had 2 or 3 girls diving on the floor, finally ended up getting a layup out of it. Just a real hustle play that kind of epitomizes the way we play.
And not only energized the team, I'm sure, and the coaching staff and you guys, but how about the crowd? A huge crowd there on Thursday night. Fired up, to say the least, and those kind of plays were getting them going.
Yeah, I think so. We always play like that, and we appreciate our fans, and we try to work hard for ourselves and for them to make the game more exciting. And I think that unfortunately we ended up losing that game, but it was one of those games where the fans came and saw a real good battle, and I think they'll continue to come back. I hope they will.
Crystal Smith in that game finally got the long-awaited 1,000th point in her prestigious career, the second Lancer to accomplish that feat this year, now the 20th in the women's basketball program.
Yeah, and only the second in the Division I era, but she missed a couple games because of injury, which slowed that down. I didn't think she'd be able to do it at home. I thought for certain she would get it on the 4-game road trip, but was unable to play. And it was just nice to see, because she's really earned it. I congratulated her, patted her on the back, and told her now she has to work on the next 1,000.
Well, she came up off the bench in that game, started on Saturday versus Liberty. What's her status update?
I would say she's about 70% right now. She looked a little bit more like the old Crystal yesterday in practice. Still not moving side to side as well, but her confidence is back, and she's getting up and down the floor much better.
Now you got her back, lost Aisha Brown. What about an update on her?
Daisha Brown's going to see the doctor on Wednesday afternoon. She has my understanding, not being a trainer or a doctor, is that it's a partially dislocated tibia. It's nothing earth-shattering, except it'll need rest and rehabilitation, and they'll know more the extent of the injury on Wednesday.
It's got to be frustrating for you as a coach, especially working with a relatively limited bench, to get somebody back and then lose somebody else, especially leaders like Crystal and Aisha.
It's just part of the business. We understand that. We have to change the way we play a little bit, but other players have stepped up also. Raven Williams had 2 terrific games last week, and Khalil Ali played very well against Liberty. So when people go down, other people usually rise to the occasion, and that's the way it's been.
Well, and you know the deal well from last year. Should I start giving a forewarning to Coach Riley or Coach Byers or any players getting taken away from any other programs?
We would take Megan Baltzell back from softball in a heartbeat, because she really helped us last year. But no, I think it's just a matter of playing freshmen and understanding that they're going to have their limitations and they're going to make their mistakes. And when you play a group of seniors, they're really solid. And then you step back a little bit and you've got your mistakes in help side, or not forcing baseline, letting them go middle, that just kind of disrupts things.
And that was last year too, but for our fans that don't know, I think it's worth touching on again. Last year you got some women's soccer players, some softball players to come in and help the shorthanded squad. Really remarkable what those student athletes were able to do and help your program.
Well, we seem to get the cream of the crop from every sport. So, Casey Oliver was absolutely fantastic for us. Megan Baltzell, Courtney Long played, and then we got a walk-on, Leanne Sullivan. And last year they saved us. I'm not sure we would have been able to make it to the end of the season. We only had 6 or 7 players on the bench, but they did an outstanding job for us last year.
And Casey Oliver now, by the way, playing professionally overseas in women's soccer action. On Saturday, Liberty came to town, preseason ranked top team in the country, the cream of the crop, if you will, in the Big South Conference, and they came in and played an outstanding ball game.
Well, they played like the top-ranked team in the country. You made a mistake there, but they did play very well on Saturday. They're very good. We don't match up with them very well. They're a lot of size. They're experienced. They run their stuff very well, and you have to be really meticulous defending them. Plus, you have to be very patient offensively. We were neither on Saturday, so hence the result.
Well, my next question was how impressive were they? And you alluded to that with saying they were looking like the top team in the country. When you look ahead at the Big South Conference tournament, I mean, they're the heavy favorites, obviously?
I would think so. I've said all along that the road to the Big South Conference Championship goes through Lynchburg, at least on the women's side, because they've been so dominant over the last 15 years that you pretty much have to pick them first. I mean, I think there are a couple teams in the league, including us if we played at our top, that could beat them, but you really have to just give them the credit that they deserve.
Now, Chelsea Coward in that game had 15 points. She had gone 3 out of 5 games in single digits after 11 consecutive double digits games. Did you feel like she was playing a little bit better on Saturday?
Yeah, I think she had a lot more energy on Saturday. I really do. It had been a down couple of games for her, a couple of weeks, and I think she probably just got tired. But it was good to see her re-energized, even in a losing cause, get out there, make some shots, and be active like she was.
Now, you've got your bye coming up this next week, and we've touched on this throughout the year, and in going back to what you just mentioned with Chelsea, the fatigue factor, trying to keep this team fresh, trying to keep this team energized as the season goes on. Is there anything new that you've discovered or tried to implement as this season's gone on?
Well, I think we've learned that with a limited bench, you're probably not going to be able to play as hectic and frenetic a pace as we do without suffering some setbacks, some injuries, some fatigue. But you know what? Everybody else in the conference has had at least one bye up to this point, and this will be our first bye in conference. Liberty, for instance, had 2. So, they're a little bit more rested, and I think playing 1 game in 12 days will kind of bring Chelsea back to the norm, will allow Crystal time to heal. Hopefully we'll be able to get Day Brown back, towards the end of that 12-day period. And if that's the case, all it is just fine-tuning for the tournament.
When yeah, you mentioned fine-tuning for the tournament. Do you have a strategic approach as far as, you mentioned your frenetic pace, how much you implement that now as opposed to in the tournament? I don't want you to show your hand too much, but are you thinking come tournament time you might be turning that on a bit in an effort to try and increase the pace?
Yeah, I think we'll have to. The idea being that you can't change yourselves when you get to a tournament. You have to play, stick with what brought you. And what's brought us so far this year is just the frenetic pace and the pressure defense. So we'll try to continue that a little bit. And along those same lines, you take the tournament games one at a time. And if you try to play differently in game 1, trying to get to game 2, you may not ever get to game 2. So once we get there, we'll try to win 1 game at a time, however we have to do it.
Getting ready to play Radford now for the 2nd time this season. You opened up your Big South Conference schedule against them at Radford and earned a win. What do you expect from the Highlanders?
Well, they played without their best player, Denari Irwin-Spencer, when we were there last time. She's back now, and she makes them a different team. So it'll be very interesting, especially since we won't play with Day. She'll be out for this Thursday's game. But I think the important thing is that we need to play together. We need to play team defense. We've struggled with that recently. We've worked on it a little bit this week to try to get that back and try to limit the players on the other teams that are the most dangerous. So we'll have our eye on Irwin-Spencer this week.
Now you have your senior leaders and then mostly freshmen on the other end of it, and now the team has gone through a tough stretch, had the 4 straight road games and then High Point and Liberty this week. Do you worry about where the team's mentality is at going into this Thursday's game?
I worry about it all the time, but I think the sense that we get is they understand that we've been playing a little shorthanded. They also understand that we've been competitive in all the games, sans Liberty, of course. But I think their attitude is fine. I think as we go in, they understand we're going to get a little bit rest, and we need to beat Radford on Thursday and then regroup for Winthrop 7 days later.
Now, our fans that come out to the home games where you've had so much success this year, 5-3 so far at Willett Hall, know that you've got your own little family cheering section. Now, Thursday's date night for the Radford game. Now, Elena, is she gonna get something after? Guys gonna go out after the game, or is this the date night coming to the game? How does that work?
I thought you were going to ask me if she was going to bring a date to the game. That would have been interesting. I'm sure we'll do something for Valentine's Day. The game kind of falls on an odd day, but we'll get something done on Valentine's Day.
It's got to be nice to have your own little family cheering section.
It does. The kids come and they enjoy the game, and they're real supportive. A couple of them have started playing basketball just because they're normally soccer players. But a couple of them started playing basketball because they come and watch our games.
Well, and the crowds in general, we alluded to the crowd at the High Point game, have really increased for you guys as the season has progressed. It feels like the school, the community is really starting to rally around you guys. That's got to be exciting for you as the coach.
It is. It's one thing that I think we talked about in our first video presentation was if we play hard and we're fun to watch, that people will actually show up. And I think that's starting to be the case. I think the word's getting out that, even though we lost a couple of games last week, that we're enjoyable to watch, we play hard, and it's an exciting brand of basketball.
And then conversely, I would think it's got to be helping your players on the floor.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We go on the road and we play in front of crowds, much smaller actually than the ones we've had the last couple of games. And it really helps when you're at home to feed off that energy.
Well, this is the Coach's Corner, so we want to get to know Coach a little bit better here. Again, talking with Head Coach Bill Reinson. Pre-game rituals, what do you do before the game to get ready? And then I guess a side question, maybe anything your coaches or your players do that's a bit quirky before the contest.
I can't speak for anyone else. I know that for myself during the national anthem, I always try to bow my head and say a little prayer. And one of the things that I ask for every time in that prayer is that everyone remain healthy during the game on both teams. So I guess I'm going to have to go to church a little bit more and say a few more prayers on that note.
And staying church appropriate, I wanted to get something from practice too that maybe we don't see or hear that is of course family friendly. That something that our fans would like to know that they don't normally get that access to. Something in practice that goes on for your team.
Well, in practice, the starting five that we have on the floor is not the best five in the gym. That's something that they need to know because if I actually suited up along with Juanisha Smith and Sarah Williams and Adria Crawford and pretty much anybody from the rest of the team, we can beat the team. We can beat the first team.
You like your chances, huh?
Oh, absolutely. As long as we don't have to go up and down because I don't do that anymore.
So are you helping or hurting the team? That's the real question.
Let's just say that Sarah and Adria are scoring a lot of points because of me.
Both former Division I basketball players.
Absolutely, and both incredible players.
Well, Coach, as always, we appreciate the time. Good luck this week against Radford. Enjoy a little time off. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, Scott.
Again, Bill Reinson joining us here on the Longwood Women's Basketball Coaches Corner. Thursday night, 7 o'clock, Radford, right here on Longwood Lancers TV and the Big South Network presented by State Farm. Again, we appreciate you joining us here on LongwoodLancers.com.